I'm 81 now. There are things I used to carry around like they mattered. Heavy things. Opinions, expectations, small arguments that stretched into years. I don't carry most of them anymore. Not because I solved anything. I just stopped. When you get to this age, the body gives you reminders. The stairs take longer. Your hands don't quite do what you ask. And time becomes something you can feel moving, not something you assume will wait. I sit in this chair most mornings, same spot, same window. The light comes in around 10, touches the edge of the table, and then moves on. It always moves on. I used to think I was busy. That's how I explained it. In my 30s, I worked 6 days a week, sometimes 7. Not because anyone forced me. I said yes to everything. Extra shifts, late calls, small favors that turned into habits. I told myself it was temporary, just a few years of pushing, and then things would settle. They never really settled. I had a wife back then. Her name was Farah. She had a way of speaking softly even when she was upset. I used to think that meant things weren't serious. I remember one evening. I came home late. It must have been close to midnight. The house was quiet except for the kitchen light. She was sitting there, not eating, just waiting. She said, "You missed dinner again." And I said something like, "I'm doing this for us." I believed that. I really did. She nodded like she understood. But there was a pause after that, a long one. I didn't notice it at the time, or maybe I chose not to. There were many evenings like that. I stopped caring about being home on time. It didn't feel important compared to everything else I had stacked in front of me. Meetings, deadlines, the feeling of being needed. That feeling can fool you. It feels like purpose. We had a son. He was quiet as a child, observant, the kind who watches more than he speaks. There was a school play once. He had a small role, a tree, I think, or something like that. He told me about it a week before, reminded me twice. On the day I got caught up at work, something small, something I can't even remember now. I told myself I'd make it in time. I didn't. When I came home, he was already in bed. My wife said, "He kept looking for you." I went into his room. He was asleep, or pretending to be. I stood there for a moment and then left. I stopped caring about those moments because I thought there would be more of them. That's the truth of it. I thought time was something I could borrow from later. You don't notice the pattern while you're in it. It's just one missed dinner, one late night, one conversation you postpone because you're tired, one apology you think you'll make tomorrow. But those ones, they add up. In my 40s, things got better on paper. More money, a bigger house. People started to respect me, or at least that's how it felt. I stopped caring about what I said to people, as long as the work got done. I became shorter with my words, less patient. I thought efficiency was a virtue. My son stopped telling me things around that time. I didn't notice it immediately. It was gradual. He'd answer in shorter sentences, spend more time in his room. I told myself it was just a phase. Teenagers do that, I thought. Maybe they do, but I gave him reasons to stay quiet. There was a day he asked me if I could help him with something. I don't even remember what it was. Homework, maybe, or something at school. I said, "Not now." I said that a lot. Not now turns into not anymore without you realizing. My wife, she adjusted. That's the word I used back then. She adjusted to my schedule, my moods, my absence, even when I was physically there. We stopped talking about important things, not because we agreed, because it felt easier not to. I stopped caring about those conversations. They felt uncomfortable, and I had 100 easier things to focus on. Years passed like that, quietly. There wasn't a single moment where everything broke. That would have been easier to understand. Instead, it was small changes. She stopped waiting up for me. We ate meals separately more often than together. Conversations became about logistics, bills, plans, necessary things. One evening she said, "We don't really talk anymore." I said, "We're just busy." She looked at me for a long time. Then she said, "No, you're busy." I didn't argue. I didn't apologize either. I just let it pass. I stopped caring about being right, but not in a good way. I just avoided anything that might prove I was wrong. When you avoid enough things, you start losing them. My son moved out in his early 20s, got a job in another city. I remember helping him pack boxes, clothes, books I never saw him read. At one point he said, "I'll visit." I said, "Of course." We both knew it wouldn't be often. He hugged his mother longer than he hugged me. After he left, the house felt larger, quieter, not peaceful, just empty in a way that makes noise feel out of place. That's when I first noticed something had shifted. Not suddenly, just enough to feel. But even then, I didn't change much. Work was still there. It always is. I stopped caring about how little time we spent together, because by then it had become normal. Normal can hide a lot of damage. The moment of clarity didn't come with a big announcement. It came in a hospital room. My wife had been feeling unwell for a while, tired mostly. She said it was nothing. I believed her. Or maybe I didn't ask enough questions. By the time we went to the hospital, it wasn't nothing. There were tests, waiting, quiet conversations in hallways. I remember sitting beside her bed. The machines made soft, steady sounds. She looked smaller somehow. We didn't talk much, not because we had nothing to say, because we didn't know where to begin. At one point she said, "You're here." It wasn't a question. I said, "Of course." She nodded. There was that pause again, the kind I had ignored for years. Then she said, "I wish we had more time." I said, "We do." I said it without thinking. She didn't respond to that. That was the last real conversation we had. She passed a few days later. It was quiet, no drama, just a moment where she was there, and then she wasn't. That's when everything I had stopped caring about came back, all at once. The dinners, the missed conversations, the way I chose everything else over sitting beside her when there was still time. You don't get those back. There's no version of the past where you can go and sit down at that kitchen table and listen properly. There's no way to stand in that doorway again and say something different. People tell you to move on. They mean well, but some things aren't meant to be moved on from. They just stay. My son came for the funeral. We spoke. It was polite, careful, like two people trying not to step on something fragile. At one point he said, "I wish you had been around more." He didn't say it with anger. That made it harder. I said, "I know," because by then I did. He lives his life now, calls sometimes, visits once or twice a year. We sit together, but there's a distance that doesn't come from miles. I stopped caring about being important in other people's lives because I realized I hadn't been there enough to earn that place. That's a quiet realization. It doesn't announce itself. It just settles in. These days, I don't worry about being right in arguments that don't matter. I don't hold on to small grudges. I don't care what people think of me the way I used to. Not because I've grown wiser in some grand way. Because I've seen what those things cost me. They cost time. And time is the only thing that doesn't come back. If I could sit with you for a moment, I wouldn't tell you to change your life. I wouldn't tell you what to do. I would just say this. Pay attention to the small moments you're about to dismiss. The conversation you think can wait. The person who is still there, quietly, without asking for much. Notice them while they're still within reach. I didn't. And now, most of what I have are memories that feel incomplete. I sit here in the mornings, watching the light move across the room. It still comes in at 10, still touches the edge of the table, still moves on. I don't try to hold it anymore. I just watch. There isn't much time left to do anything else. If you're listening to this, that's enough for me. Not because it fixes anything, just because the words didn't stay inside this time.